I'm Adam Merali, one of the founders of Merali Beedle.
I'm Nico Beedle. I'm also a founder of Merali Beedle.
How Merali Beedle came about.
I mean, it's actually exactly like it would be in a traditional firm. You call up your, let's say, a property lawyer, we've got this deal, what would your fees be? And it's really the same. I mean, essentially, you are doing exactly the same thing, you're just paid in a different way.
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Thompson from Introlegal, and today I'm joined by Adam and Nico. Would you like to introduce yourselves more formally?
Yes, I'm Adam Merali, one of the founders of Merali Beedle, and I'm a property lawyer.
I'm Nico Beedle. I'm also a founder of Merali Beedle and also a property lawyer. I'm not just copying Adam's answers.
So we did this about 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, in COVID, I was on my dining room table last time we did one of these catch-ups. So yeah, a lot has changed since then. I'm glad we're out and able to see each other in person. So things are definitely improved.
I think we were saying before this. I think it's only Nico and I have got the same hairstyles. I think. I know you've got the same hairstyle. I think we've changed ours a few times.
We've got similar hairstyles to each other. We like to be aligned for these kind of things.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So how did you both meet?
So we met as members of Hampstead Golf Club Junior Golfer Division. I think I was about 13.
I think you were younger. I think you were 12 and
Maybe
I was
12.
14
Yeah.
or something like that. It's
Obviously
pretty rock and roll
the
story.
leading talent of Hampstead Golf Club, I'd like to say. Or not.
Who's the better golfer?
Adam is.
He was back then. At least some things have changed for the better.
Okay, so when we did this during lockdown, the whole purpose was for the listeners to understand a bit more about Merali Beedle. So it'd be good for those who didn't catch the first podcast that we did to get an understanding of how Merali Beedle came about.
Well, it wasn't a bright idea that either of us had one day. It really was an accident. And I had qualified as a solicitor and left the firm that I trained with and was floating around a bit. I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to start a company. So the idea at the time was keep exploring, read lots of stuff, get some experience in different things, and hopefully an idea will come and that will be the company that I start. However, I was running out of money pretty quickly. And my dad actually said, well, you're qualified as a lawyer. Why don't you at least start a law firm so you can provide legal services to people? And just can the law firm as soon as you have your idea of what you actually want to do. And that, knowing that I would close the firm within a year sounded less scary. So that's sort of the very initial stage, and Nico came on board to help me deliver some of the work. I was very junior at the time, and Nico luckily had many more years of post-qualification experience under his belt, so we worked together to deliver some commercial property leases. And then we started to actually see some traction kind of by accident. And we sort of sat down one day and said, look, does this vague plan resonate with you? And should we look at doing this together? And thankfully he said yes. I think doing a regulated business on your own is really hard. I think especially, with all the regulation, to have at least one other person doing it with you is critical. Probably you should have 3 or 4, I would almost say. But, two of you at the very minimum is required really these days. And so we couldn't really afford to hire lawyers. So the only thing we could afford to do is take lawyers on a per case basis. So that's how we started, and over the years we refined that idea and turned into more of a sort of people call it dispersed law, but you can liken it to a barrister's chambers So there's no salary, and you get paid for what you do. And from us as a young business, not having all that much money, that was the cheapest way to start without having all the lawyers' employee salaries every month.
So it's by accident then, in reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in terms of me joining it, so Adam set it up, and his dad was involved as well, who had his own law firm and had been a qualified lawyer for a long time, in more of a chairman kind of role. And there was another lawyer we worked with who wanted to go down a more traditional route, and she ended up setting up her own firm, and I think she's referred us work and stuff. So it was, she just wanted to go a separate way. And in terms of my joining, and I, similarly to Adam, is I'd worked for a very big international firm in the city, and then a firm in Mayfair, where I still get on very well with the people there, but I was at a point in my life where I thought I wanted to stop being a lawyer altogether, and start helping out Adam. And then we started bringing in our own clients, and exactly as Adam said, and it was during the course of 2015 where we were developing our practices, but in a this might work kind of way. And for me, the tipping point was towards the end of 2015, where Adam was starting to build up traction in terms of resi property law, and I was building up some work in terms of commercial property. But it was just, I got instructed on one thing, which was slightly bigger, and the fee was enough that it would tide me over for a few months. And it was when we were talking about what to do next, it was a case of, okay, there's something going on here. So it was, although the firm had been going for a year and a bit, and we set up all the regulatory and got all the money and everything exactly where it needed to be, it was the beginning of 2016 that we both decided to go, right, full time. Mm-hmm. We're now doing this properly. This is a flyer. And Adam had met a couple of lawyers who are still with us, who are great residential property lawyers. There was someone I knew who was a litigator who came on board. The family lawyer who had been with us was still with us at that point. So that's when things started to move. So it's quite a long time ago, but it was a case of trying it out. And then beginning of 2016, it was a concerted decision.
Yeah. I remember when you put that bill in for that larger matter, then I think you had the rest of the summer off. I didn't see him for 6 weeks. So.
There's a bit of a warning sign there, Adam, I think.
Well, it just shows if you run, law can be a fantastic way of earning a living.
Yeah.
And, one big deal pretty much paid for 6 weeks of your holiday. Yeah. So if you do law in the right way, it's a brilliant career path. And I used to think law was a terrible career path. So I've completely flipped my view on it.
And what have you learned about each other along the way?
Gosh, I think we've learned a lot about ourselves as well.
With Adam, and it's interesting because you hear about the difficulties people have in all kinds of relationships, whether they be romantic, business, friendships, and everything else like that. But with Adam and I, because we've been friends since we were so little, and we have that long-standing connection and trust, is although we see things differently sometimes, there's total trust in what each other are doing, which is when you're dealing with a regulated business and lots of client money is very important, as we've seen with one particular firm I can think of. There's that, but it was also, I think, just the reliability, which is both of us are just, we'll just do what needs to be done, right? And it's a case of, if something needs to be done and one of us can't do it, the other one will step in and do it. There's very little.
Yeah, we don't ever have to negotiate on that. It's just always, we're just always there. But that has really led into our practices with clients as well. So I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to build up such a good client following, because we're very consistent and always accountable. So it's been difficult. Especially at the beginning, just in terms of running the business. But we've not really had, we've had plenty of points where we haven't agreed on whatever it is we're talking to each other about. But we go through everything in a very careful and considered way. And I think the combination of the two personalities is is then much better versus the single personality, the single viewpoint. So we're quite lucky that we're very aligned on those issues.
I mean, look, I've known you both, coming up to, I think, 5 years. I think I've known you about 6 years now. I think you definitely both complement each other very well. Of all the people that I've ever put forward to you for interview processes, I think you're the easiest sell in terms of a duo, because you are natural. What you say is what you do and what you deliver. For want of a better word, there's no sugarcoating what you do. And what is it about Merali Beedle that sets you aside, say, from some of your competitors in your space? I mean, we all know who the bigger firms are in your space. I mean,
I was having lunch with someone I used to work with yesterday, who works for one of our competitors. And they're of our competitors, the one who I think is doing things in a way which I think is sustainable. And he's having a good experience there. And I was saying to him that it's often a cultural fit for people, but the two things which differentiate us most from other firms in this space is we're fee earners, practicing lawyers. We own the business. There's no private equity. There's no looking for explosive growth to sell it. We are only looking for really good lawyers. So we're not looking to dilute the quality of the lawyers for the sake of growing. So that, I think those, in terms of what attracts people to us, is the fact I don't know what attracts people to us. Maybe they'll just like my hair because it looks like
just
yours.
be attracted to you.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, come on, who isn't?
Their eyes aren't painted on, Luke. But I think it's the fact that we're practicing what we preach in terms of the fact we're just there doing the work. Yeah. That's how the firm started. We have no desire to stop working in terms of fee earning. We're still doing as much as we ever did. And so there's that. And so when people come into the office, they see us there working. Yeah. So we're not managers, we're not snake oil salesmen. And the quality control is a really important factor, because it means that when people want to bring their following on board with us, in terms of referrals, who else might be within the firm, in terms of the CVs and where people have been in other firms on the website, it gives them and their clients confidence that, yeah, we might be paying our lawyers in a more dispersed way than other, in a rewards-driven way than other law firms, but they have that comfort of seeing, okay, so you've grown to 37 lawyers over 9 years rather than 300 lawyers over 2 years. There's sustainable growth, and we're not as young as we used to be. We're not old, and I think a lot of it is just thinking we're building this firm to be here for a long time, and we've seen what's happened to other law firms over the last few years, and as competitors might merge or fall away or change their policies or whatever, we'll be there. So I think that's a bit of a long answer, but I think that the two main things is that we both practice, we're both there, we're not looking to sell or grow super quickly, and the quality control. Yeah.
So we've also started our practices from literally zero. So when I was there, I was 6 months qualified or so at the very beginning, and no one knew me. I wasn't an industry name. I wasn't in any publication. I had no referral network at all. So now I've got a very good client base and referral network, and when we meet lawyers from top firms, a lot of them don't have a client base, or they don't think they have a client base. That actually a lot of them do. Yeah, absolutely. But no one has ever sat with them and said, actually, all of these people that you've interacted with, all you need to do is tell them to send you work, or ask, or say that you are doing something slightly different and you need to build up your book of clients. And we sit down with every lawyer who joins us who needs that journey. And because we have gone on it ourselves, and we didn't really have anyone showing us what to do at the beginning, so we had a lot of trial and error, and we had to figure out, okay, this works, that doesn't work, and how does this as an industry as a business work? We then bring all of that knowledge and experience to all of these brilliant lawyers that we meet who don't think they have a client base, and we help them get up and running generally very quick, much faster than they think they'll
I was
be
going
able
to say,
to
have you
do
been
it.
surprised along the way with a few individuals that have come on board and you've encouraged them and shown them how to do it? And
I think we now know, when we meet someone, we know how quickly they will, let's say, bed in and start billing to a level that they're very comfortable with. But the people who join us don't know it because they haven't had that point of realization yet, or that experience in doing it. But we can tell pretty early on, very early on, when someone will be very comfortable with their level of earnings. And that's why I mentioned people get surprised with how quickly it starts to work. And also, I think a lot of lawyers are slightly risk averse. They've gone into law for a stable kind of career, and they're not used to what you're used to in law is receiving a salary every month. And so after years and years and years of doing that, you suddenly go into a system where if you don't do anything, you won't get paid anything at all. So there's this perception of monetary risk, let's call it. But then when you start, and we generally see people can earn between 2 to 3 times what traditional law will pay as a salary. So if you take a slight, let's still call it a monetary risk. If you take a slight monetary risk, you can actually earn 2 to 3 times what traditional law will pay you. But then think about it in the inverse, in that if you've been a top performer in a traditional firm for, let's say, 10 years, and suddenly there's a downturn and things are not looking good in your firm, and you haven't performed well, then potentially you're on a redundancy list. And so you've put in all these years of goodwill and fantastic billings, but does it really count for anything? I'm not entirely sure it does. So just to circle back, we sit down with everyone who joins us and really help them get to having a fantastic following as early as possible.
But I think times have moved on. I think traditionally people went into law. It was it's one of those professions where you were safe in your job for the entirety of your career. I think what some lawyers forget now, certainly junior lawyers coming through, that law is a business like any other.
Yeah.
If you're not billing, you're not doing your chargeable hours, you're not hitting your quarterly targets, then you're going to be under review, and very quickly you could be at risk of no job.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree. And I think what Adam mentioned there is, it's actually, I didn't think of it, but it's a really important third thing that differentiates us from our competitors is we're more concerned with the quality of the candidate than the level of their following. So we've turned away quite a few people recently who have had really good followings, especially in residential property, which is what Adam practices and a bunch of our lawyers do, because their fee levels were just not up to the levels that we're charging, and it meant they were doing volume work, and we thought we're not comfortable from an insurance perspective and in terms of a brand continuity perspective of having people who are going to be charging that amount per conveyance, because it means they can't be giving it the attention we're giving. And at the same time, when we meet someone brilliant, so in terms of people building up a following and a client base and work, is someone joined at the beginning of this calendar year who is at Forces, which was the firm I was at before we founded our Merali Beedle, and she's absolutely flying, and she didn't have a following at all. And it's just that personality type, and she's great, and we got on very well, and we had total faith it would work, and it is. So in terms of job security, the other thing that, again, we didn't realize and learnt, again, accidentally on purpose, is we built up these practices when we weren't that senior. And what we've seen time and time again with candidates and people I know at other firms is you are judged not just on the quality of your legal skills, it is the level of your following. And so people put in years and years and years at firms, incredible work for other partners or partners if they're associates. And then when times are tough, if you don't have clients to follow you, you're just very expensive labour in the eyes of the business. And you will see this from an recruitment
every
point
day.
of view.
Yeah, I mean, the question I'm asked by nearly every single partner that I speculatively send a candidate to, they'll say, the first question, what's their portable practice?
Yeah.
And if that figure doesn't look appetizing to them, then in reality it's just a no, because they're just a head cost.
Yeah.
So, and I think what's a real shame is you get those incredibly good lawyers at some of the, you know, top tier firms that are at that, you know, 10 to 13 PQE mark. They're on very, very high salaries, so somewhat trapped in those firms. All the work essentially is the firm's. They're at legal director, managing associate level. They can't get to partner. They can't really consider dispersed law because they haven't had the opportunity to build that practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky, and I think my advice to people would be to seriously consider building your name, your following as early on as possible, so that you don't get caught in that kind of mid-level trap.
And even at the partnership level, and it's something we've seen a lot, and the kind of people who we attract and talk to is, back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, when you became a partner of a law firm, you became a partner in that business. Whereas now, firms are keeping equity more tightly wrapped. You get made partner, big celebration. You're effectively an ultra senior associate. You don't have any equity yet. You're hugely under pressure to prove yourself and prove your following. And people are retiring later. So there are people at the senior level who are less willing to give up their position, especially firms with lockstep. All of these considerations, it means that people with a following who may not be at equity level, may not have the equity they deserve. It's very attractive to come to a consultancy firm and take home X%, build up a team around you, beneath you. Know you're going to be taking home 75% of what you bill or your team bill, and then you can pay them accordingly. It gives you genuine autonomy, and you know you're being rewarded for what you're earning now, not trying to prove yourself so in 5 years' time you might get paid what you'll deserve.
And what would you say, I mean, one of the common themes whenever you speak to people about dispersed law, they'll say, you know, isn't that one of those models where everyone works remotely, there's no collaborative working environment, I have to have at least X amount in terms of following? I mean, what would you say to people who say that, you know, it doesn't allow for a collaborative way of working? And my experience of coming to Merali Beedle is that whenever I've been to the office, pretty much 70% of your workforce is there.
Yeah, so people always ask us, how much do I have to come in? And we always say to people, look, it's nice to see you, but it's ultimately the decision is yours. Our software works anywhere in the world with an internet connection. But we have, I mean, it's so easy to work with colleagues. I'm working on a transaction now which has a lot of corporate involvement. So 2 corporate colleagues are helping on this deal. But all it is, it's actually exactly like it would be in a traditional firm. You call up let's say I'm a property lawyer, I'll need corporate support. I'll call up the corporate partner and say, you know, we've got this deal, what would your fees be? And it's really the same. There's no, essentially you are doing exactly the same thing. You're just paid in a different way. So I turned to my corporate colleagues and said, can you help on this deal? They were happy to help, and that's it. So we have no hierarchy in the firm, but there will always be let's call it a relationship person between the firm and the client. So that person on our side, on the Merali Beedle side, will simply collate the fees from all the different practice areas that you require to deliver on this piece of work and present it to the client. Client okays it, you bring everyone together, you deliver the work, and then off you go. So you absolutely do collaborate, and it's very easy. It's no different at all to traditional law. And we see there's no downside to it with how we're doing it.
I think in some ways it's more collaborative because people are reliant on bringing in work and doing a good job. So when people refer work to each other, you want to make sure that you do a good job for someone else's client.
Be more incentivized.
You want them to refer work to you again, and you want them to keep the client within the firm. And it's another reason we have deliberately not grown too quickly is it's great that people within the firm know who each other are. We're not having 30 new joiners a month or whatever it is, and that's very helpful. And we've retained a lot of the same people, pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
We've had a few people come back, which has been great, where they've gone to work in a traditional firm again and been like, actually, it was more fun with you guys. Two people
Told you so.
I told you so, exactly, yeah. Try not to look too smug when they come back.
It's happened several times
yeah,
now as well,
yeah.
so it's not just a one-off.
Yeah, totally, and that's amazing, and it means that people have their own relationships and the people they like to pass work to each other, and so we just don't get involved if we don't need to get involved.
I mean, I'm sure you agree with me, Nico. Whenever I speak to Adam, I've never known anyone so passionate about this model than Adam. I mean, from your perspective, whenever we speak, it's almost as if for you it's just like a no-brainer. I can't understand why people are still doing.
Well, I did not enjoy the legal career path, and I left. I mean, there's a reason that you, after spending 4 years learning and training, and you cannot wait to leave this career path, and I left it without hesitation. So what I really don't understand, and it still happens today all the time, and I speak to friends at different firms, and they will have a new client that they've been working on. They are the ones who put in the effort to go after work and take people out and get to know more people, and they bring in the work, and then they have to hand it over to whichever partner, and that's it. The relationship is suddenly gone, and it just seems incredibly unfair because you're the one who's put the effort in, so why should you not be rewarded? So I think the second you have sort of incentives which are not aligned correctly, you start to get, let's call it a dysfunctional system. And that for me was a big driver to push me away from this career path. So I still find it very strange.
I think I get it, because in terms of, although it doesn't make financial sense, it makes emotional sense in terms of the security. And especially if you've got a big mortgage and you've got a family and things, but then what we see is the fact that security is often an illusion. And the thing is, sometimes it's people facing that scenario which makes them realise. Someone I'm close to recently who was on partnership track at a city firm, and a really impressive lawyer, and the firm had been making all the right noises about them becoming a partner. They train there, everything else that goes with it, and however many years, 9 years down the line, they were told it's not going to happen for you. You've got to find somewhere else to go within the next year, which is a way of avoiding having to pay for redundancy and everything that goes. And they're brilliant, and they're going to get a job elsewhere. But it's the idea that this is my home, and it's as I said before, it's one of the reasons I want to carry on fee earning. I'm very aware that as a lawyer, the firm's doing brilliantly, but as a lawyer, my security really is in who is going to instruct me to do law for them.
I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but obviously doing legal recruitment day in, day out, I feel, irrespective of the size of the dispersed law firm, some lawyers I speak to, there is a little bit of snobbery towards the model, and I think less so as the companies and firms that are doing this type of work are growing. But I think some people, you speak to say, well, isn't that for lawyers that are at the kind of the tail end of their career, or isn't that for lawyers that weren't able really to make it in the more traditional law firm models? I mean, what would you say to those people? Because they will be listening to this. And there'll be some who will think that
they should research the remuneration structure and partnership structure further, because we speak to a lot of partners in fantastic firms who earn less than they would if they were in a structure like ours. And the reason for that is you've got these slightly archaic partnership structures where you are supporting people who perform less well than you. So, if it just depends if you're happy to share more, I suppose. Whereas my view is, if I'm going to be a top performer, then I want to either be surrounded by top performers who are at least equal, but the second there's an unequal element, there's a lack of fairness. So the other, apart from the remuneration, the other issue we always hear is that of infighting and disagreements. And sometimes you've got 10 partners inputting, or it can be many, many more, inputting on changes on a website, and nothing will get done. So you end up taking all the the most valuable time in the firm potentially, and just wasting it because everyone needs to have an opinion about something, and that is not always the most effective way to run a firm. And one major problem which we've seen very recently is within a team, the partner was not able to remunerate his team as they saw fit, and some people had really outperformed, and the fellow partners said, your budget is this, and that's it. And again, it's, if you're not allowed to run your practice how you feel is best, you're trying to run with your feet bound. And then it becomes a very difficult proposition for someone to really effectively engage with. So for those people who possibly don't know the full extent of what they're getting into where they are, they should look into it more, find out what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, how the partnership structure works where they are. Are there any debts of the partnership? If someone leaves, do they need to be...
Absolutely.
Well, we met a corporate lawyer about a year ago, and he was offered partnership at his firm, and he looked at the business. He looked at the law firm as a business and said, why on earth would I invest in it? It's anything he invests will be used to pay someone out. So where's the new money? Where's the investment in the business? And there wasn't any. So you've got to be really, really careful, because you're taking on a massive liability. So people need to really, and if potentially this lawyer was a corporate lawyer, so he was more potentially more exposed to the business side of industry. But you should if you are thinking of equity partnership, you absolutely need to get someone who's very, very aware of how businesses work and how all the numbers and the accounts. You need to make sure what you're getting into is not a complete financial mess.
Yeah. And I think in terms of snobbery, there's people are often suspicious or reticent to do something which is new or they haven't tried before.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this model's now been around for 15, 20 years. It's not that new. And in terms of snobbery, Adam's always been like a real kind of bottom line numbers man, as well as being a brilliant lawyer. And it's a case of like, well, if you prefer to feel self-satisfied earning half as much money as you could at this first law firm, go ahead.
Yeah, quite.
That's the thing.
Reality,
if you have if it makes you feel really good about yourself to go into an office which has got a big expensive lobby, which maybe your firm doesn't need to be paying for, which is one of the reasons that you're earning less than you would via a firm where they've got something more sensible. It's all of those things. So it's a choice people make.
The other thing is sorry to interject, but barristers have been working like this for decades.
Absolutely.
So there's really nothing new about the concept that we're doing here. And I think barristers do very well. So why shouldn't solicitors look at something that barristers are doing and think, okay, well, will that work for us? And the answer is it does work for us, and it works very well, in fact.
So anyone, obviously, who's interested in Merali Beedle can go onto the website and see the multitude of services that your lawyers offer. What would you say to someone who's listening to this, watching this podcast, that's considering working in a dispersed law firm? What would you like to say to them?
I think the first thing would be what Adam mentioned in terms of where do you think work would be coming from in terms of your contacts, your clients. Something we've always really undersold referrals from within the firm, because we think it's much safer to say to someone, look, we can't guarantee any work coming through the firm. The reality is often there is work coming through the firm, and almost all of our lawyers will tell you that that's the case. But it's very important to put it on the person and just say, okay, so how much do you bill a year, do you think? How much do you want to earn a year? Who are the contacts you haven't got in touch with because you're too busy, or as Adam said, because if you do bring work into your firm, it's rewarded, your partner's rewarded and you just have to go home later. So all of those things, I think that often associates and non-equity partners are so busy, especially associates, that not only is there no financial incentive to bring work in the firm, it's also they're, again, from a mental health perspective, disincentivized or de-incentivized to do so, because they'll just end up busier. And they don't have time to go and meet all the contacts and the agents if they're property lawyers, or the accountants if they're corporate lawyers or finance lawyers, to see what work they could bring in. And so I think that would be just to have a think about it, because I know from my experience of, especially when I was working in the city, is I didn't feel like I had the headspace to even think about what the next stage would look like. I knew I wasn't happy, but I was really busy. And as a result, when I wasn't at work, I just wanted to, watch football and have downtime. I didn't want to come up with a plan for the rest of my life.
But I often, whenever I speak to lawyers, when I speak to them about Merali Beedle and dispersed law in general, I use the example that I stopped practicing divorce law 6 years ago this year. I must get a WhatsApp at least once a month from someone within our kind of family network, through friends, former colleagues, because you are known as being someone that practiced in a particular area.
Yeah.
I think people underestimate that. I often say to lawyers that perhaps are interested in Merali Beedle, what would you be disappointed not billing at the bottom of your garden shed in the next financial year?
Yeah.
In response to their first answer being, I'm not sure if I have a following.
Yeah.
Ask them that second question, they'll often say to me, well, I suppose I'd be disappointed if I didn't bill at least, maybe 150. And then you say to them, well, you have a following. And do you find that when you quiz people, when they say don't have followings, that actually they do, and just haven't realised that they haven't tapped into them?
Absolutely.
They're almost always a safer bet. So the people we meet, so many people who aren't sure that they're going to be able to bring their work across, and they're concerned about it. And a lot of the people who've joined, I think the other thing to say is that lots and lots of people who have joined our firm who have known Adam and I or met us months, years before joining. Often it's a slow burn thing, which is you get to know about this business model, you think about it, and then over the course of the next year or two, you think about how much work you're bringing in and what you could have brought in and how much you could have earned. That gives you the confidence to step aside. But often we meet people and they're really concerned they won't bring the work across, or they won't develop new clients, and they then think about it. And it's about just having faith in people where they're obviously scared for good reasons. It's natural to be scared. It's when we've met people who are absolutely sure that it's all going to follow them, it's going to be great, without naming names. And that's always, I think people who are overconfident and seem bulletproof is a bit of a red flag.
Because it's kind of like the wrong answer to the wrong interview. So if you're going, do you know what I mean? If you're going into a traditional firm, you want to say how good your client base is and how you bill, X millions a year. But in our model, you get found out really quickly because you are fully accountable and you're fully responsible for your own success and your failure. So the people that we meet who are realistic and a bit reserved, and maybe they are really thinking through and adding a negative slant to it so that they can account for a downside, those people are great because they underestimate how good their following is. And the other thing is as I mentioned earlier, we talk people through, I don't want to call it coaching or training, but we literally just talk lawyers through who their network is, how we built followings from scratch. And all the lawyers that we're meeting now, they've been generally qualified for 8 years plus. So we started it when we were significantly less qualified and really no one knew us. So for them to, even if they had a zero following today, after you're 10 years qualified, people do know you. You just haven't realized the extent of how much people know you and how much people would seek you out if they knew you were looking for work and open to developing new networks and relationships with people. So yeah.
And actually on that, it makes me think that because of the level of the experience of the lawyers we are talking to, often in traditional firms, they have clients of their own and they have clients who maybe technically aligned to a specific partner where they're no longer able to do the work that their clients want them to do, because they're pressurized to push it down to a more junior level to make the numbers and the whip on the file work and everything that goes with it. And so a massive sell for the people who work with us, for us as well, is we're these senior lawyers with loads of experience who know what we're doing, and we say, look, if you instruct me, you get me. It's not instruct me and I push it down to someone junior. And it's a breath of fresh air for the clients of a lot of those partners who join us, where what they're fed up with is being charged lots of money and talking to that partner maybe when things go wrong or occasionally. They just want someone who knows what they're doing to do the work. And so it sort of frees a lot of the lawyers from the shackles of that, and they come to us and be like, look, I know is that there was that bit of work which was a couple of grand which I couldn't do, and I had to get someone junior to do, and it took 2 months longer than it should have done. Now I'm here, you will just get me.
And how does it work in terms of support?
So with paralegals, or
Yeah,
how
so
do you mean
in
exactly?
terms of support on the actual work itself with the lawyers, do they have access to support within the firm?
Yeah, so if you have a longer case, let's say it probably is most relevant in litigation or court work. So if you have a long running case, we have a company that we use who give us paralegals generally within 24 or 48 hours notice. And then you contract that paralegal to help you deliver that case. Otherwise, what we sometimes do see is you can also just use a more experienced person to help you if it's small. So it really depends. If it's a small thing, you might just turn around. So I couldn't do a license to assign recently, which is a permission to sell. It's not an overly complicated document at all. Perhaps in a traditional firm, you might get a paralegal to do it. I turned to a colleague and said, it's not glamorous work, but it's not really difficult. You'll zip through it, being a 7-year qualified lawyer. And I just gave it to them. So, and because that's a very small, maybe it takes a couple of hours to do, you can take someone senior to do that, let's say, easier work. But if it's a longer case, you take on a paralegal.
And the other thing with that, I think, as well as the hop on, hop off paralegals that people at our firm use, there are a number of lawyers who have built a team around them. So have a paralegal who works for them full time or fixed number of days part time, or have junior lawyers. I say junior, not that junior, lawyers who work for them. So there's that opportunity as well. And again, we just talk to our lawyers and see what they need. The other great thing about it being just the two of us who make the decisions is there's no committee for things to go through. The reason the firm looks the way it looks now is through trial and error over the last coming up for 10 years. We've never had any fixed ideas about what it should look like, which means in terms of flexibility, we're not ego driven. As you know, we're doing stuff like this is something it takes quite a lot of effort to get us to do. We don't want to be shouting from the rooftops and having our face on things.
It's only six emails, 5 attempts to get you on the phone.
Yeah, but
pretty good actually.
But it goes with the same territory, is not having the egos of wanting to be seen that way.
Yeah.
Fits in with, if we make a mistake or if something's not working, we're like, okay, yeah, fine, let's change it. And again, being transactional lawyers and being fee earners and doing as much as we do means we're really, really well placed to assess whether or not something is or isn't working. There's something in terms of, boring, technical, in terms of our file client opening procedures where we've changed it recently and we feel like the way the questions are worded, there was, one or two too many questions. And because we're opening files a lot ourselves, we're like, this isn't as user-friendly as we think it could be. We just want to tweak this slightly.
Yeah.
Rather than, well, that's what we put in place. You're gonna have to like it or lump it, and so yeah, I think that's a big benefit of us. Just
Well, it's brilliant that we're both still fee earners.
Definitely.
That is massively helpful in so many different ways in terms of how the firm operates, how we help people who come on board, how we can work share, how we can client share, referring to other lawyers in the firm. So, and also sometimes we even get asked questions by our counterparts on a transaction of, how do you guys actually work? I've heard something about how you're doing. And so
it's authentic.
Yeah, exactly. If I think, well, for us, it's just so important for us to fee earn. I sometimes get asked, when are you going to stop fee earning? And I just don't know why I would.
It's actually really funny. I haven't told you about this guy yet, but in terms of fee earning, exactly you said, counterparts of transaction. I'll reach out to him at some point in the next couple of weeks, but I'm doing a deal at the moment, and this guy on the other side of it was being really difficult last week, and I was like, this guy's like, what is wrong with him? And the reason I thought he was being difficult was because he was giving me a tough time. You know, he's giving me a run for my money. And now we've got over that hump and we're nearly there on the deal. I'm definitely going to reach out to him at the end of the transaction to see whether he might be interested.
Yeah.
And it was that, you know, and it's the best recruitment tool we have, is lots of people who join the firm where either we've been on the other side of a transaction for them and thought they're really good, or someone else within the firm has. And there's another guy we're talking to who I did quite a complicated finance deal with about, it must be 2019, so what, 5 years ago. That's terrifying that 2019 is 5 years ago. And we got on really well. And in fact, we did a deal the other side of each other in 2012 when I was at Forster's, and we met up for a coffee with him the other day and see whether anything comes of that. But it's another great reason to be fee earning. If we're looking to grow the firm with really good lawyers, we get to see how people behave and what they're like on transactions.
I mean, the two of you are very modest, and I'm going to put you on the spot now. In terms of firms, are you able to name some of the firms that your present lawyers have joined from? Because there are some big names now amongst the wider team.
Yeah,
this is like a test. Should we go through them? So, previous firms, people, Norton Rose, Alex was at Clifford Chance before. Ashley,
Forster's most recently.
Forster's, I was there as well. Ashley was a partner at CRS, joined, then rejoined, having been a partner at Hill Dickinson. Layla was
Black Dates, we just had.
Yeah, Erwin Mitchell, BCLP. Jason was at Mishcons. This reminds me of one of those game shows. Which one was it with the conveyor belt?
Look, these
where you've got
big names.
Where you've got to name everything. Is that enough? Do we want a few more? But yeah,
any US firms?
Yeah. Great. See, there we go. Sometimes a prompt is helpful. Nick was a partner at Brown Rudnick, and Natalie, who works with him, was also at Brown Rudnick. So yeah.
But I think this is good though. I think from the listener's perspective, this is what I have to do with you two, to have to extract this information, because I think it's a big deal. They are big firms. Yeah. They're quality lawyers. I mean, by the time this goes out, I think you've got another possibly circa 14, 15 lawyers looking to join you in around kind of beginning of the financial year.
Yeah.
Which will take you to how many lawyers?
52, I believe, maybe 53. And that team's a great example. Adam's been talking to the guy who heads up that team for 5 years, working on the other side of deals with him.
Yeah.
And so he knows how we work, what we're like. And as the guy who I mentioned, who I worked with on 2 deals over the last 12 years, said when he met up for a coffee with me and Adam came down, he said, we just really got on. You know, you just get a feel for people who you connect with and you know are genuine. And I think there's something about us having not wanted to be lawyers anymore at some point, which it gives a genuine humility in that we're not wrapped up in the idea of being lawyers.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's a case of also making it making it a fun environment to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. I saw on LinkedIn the other day, I think you had a pizza lunch day, and then you had
National Pizza Day.
National Pizza. Sorry, big part. Yeah, I missed that.
Pancake Day as well. We also did.
Yeah, I saw that. And then you have your summer picnic, which you very kindly invited me along to, which was great. I loved that. And then we saw you doing some kind of interesting putting, or was it Nick?
Oh goodness,
golf,
yeah.
That was you.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Yeah, and
I mean, what we do on, we pick a Friday in the month or a Thursday, and we just say to everyone, we're hosting lunch in the office. Whoever wants to join in, just tell us. Again, small things like that bring everyone together. You can all have some food together and make sure all that, the collaboration, it's all easier because everyone is speaking to each other. Yeah. So we do a few things to bring everyone together in the firm. So it's not like everyone is siloed off. And it's optional. If you want to come in and meet all of your colleagues, then it's there. And if you don't, it's absolutely not a problem.
Yeah. I think that the fact it's optional is really nice. Like, we're here, there'll be a takeaway for anyone who wants it. Come and see us. And what's really nice, sometimes people come in and forget that it's takeaway day. And like, oh yeah, Persian, yes please. They're having a delicious meal. So there's something special about breaking bread together, isn't there? Always, right? In terms of
and I think
it's like rather than it being, and we and again, things that we used to do and we've stopped doing. One was we used to have a monthly Zoom catch up for people who wanted, and it was, you know, we made an effort and some of us joined it, but it felt like a chore to them.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's forced fun, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's
I
not
can't
really
bear
what we're about. And so saying come and have some food if you want to, but if not,
Yeah.
we totally understand. More pizza for me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's authentic. I think, but I think that in firms where there is that kind of forced fun element, as you say, people can do it if they want to, and they don't have to. Whereas in a firm, traditional firm, there's an expectation. You're getting paid a salary. You better be there. You better be seen to be wearing the gold visor that Adam was really coolly donning in the LinkedIn video. But no, it's no. I think it's good, and I think it's exactly those things that people would expect not to get out of dispersed law firm. I think they assume you're just going to be, as you say, siloed off, working from home, not seeing kind of a wider team. Something, I mean, I think I've already asked about 4 questions from my list of questions that I spent ages typing up, but it's good, it's nice. One question I did want to ask you, what challenges have you faced as founders of Merali Beedle, and how have you overcome them?
One of the biggest was the cost of regulation.
Yeah.
I think if I were to go back, all the way back and be at that age again and think, do I want to set up this highly expensive business environment? I'm not sure. I hope I would, but it is expensive to do regulation correctly. Mm-hmm. And again, we speak to lawyers and each firm has their own procedures, but we don't cut any corners on it. And it is expensive, but we take the view that you'd rather pay more money and do it correctly than take shortcuts and then get found out one day and then you're in a lot more trouble. So the cost of regulation is a big one, I think.
I think it goes with that, regulation related. I think in terms of challenges we faced, one was insurance. So we are a firm who does a lot of property, and because of claims in the insurance market against property law firms, especially I think volume firms, insurers are resistant to insuring firms which do lots of property. And touch wood, we haven't had any claims at all in 10 years. We've had notifications because things arise, but it's one of the reasons we try and recruit really good people and don't want to do volume, is we realise that claims is the one biggest unknown cost for the business. You know, if we have claims, then our insurance goes up. But we had an experience 3 years ago now, I believe, where after 6 years of no claims with a US insurer, which will remain nameless, our insurance brokers were being very lazy and just thought, we'll get waived through renewal. And on the last day of our policy, 28th of February, whatever it was, the insurer said, we're not going to insure you. And so we went into the whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. And we had this weekend where I remember calling Adam saying, they've said we're not going to get insured. Because we're good mates, like, yeah, hilarious, mate. I was like, no, I'm being serious. Oh, sorry. And it was like, okay, fine. There goes our weekend. But during the course of that weekend, we spoke to a couple of brokers and we got introduced to Miller insurance brokers. Shout out to Miller. So, anyone out there who's looking for insurance, Zarina Tarai and Louise at Miller are incredible. And within 3 days we had...
I think I made that introduction.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, Luke. Oh, this
Shout
is it.
out to
Oh
Luke
my
there.
God, this is fine. Shout out to Luke Thompson. Anyone who wants a broker of insurance brokers, go to Luke Thompson. He'll be able to find you one. And we got on a call with them on the Sunday, and within 3 days they had 2 quotes from other insurers, one of whom QBE is our insurer and has been for 3 years, and they're brilliant. They're much more interactive. They're really invested, and it's a partnership. But that was an incredibly scary and challenging thing, which is we built this business over 6 years. We were furious because the whole point of the quality control and not having claims was to make insurance easy, and then you're getting punished for other firms' claims. So that was a huge challenge, actually. I think it's definitely the biggest challenge we've faced as a business.
And I mean, I think other smaller firms that are opening are going to face those challenges. And I think the bigger you are, the easier it probably gets. Is that fair?
Definitely.
Yeah, and actually it's a real benefit to us now, which is I think setting up a law firm now would be far more difficult on the insurance side. And people who we talk to, and again, there are lots of entrepreneurial lawyers we talk to who have looked into it, are aware of it, and think that I can come to you and get 75% what I bill, paying nothing in terms of insurance, none of the regulatory, not having to pay for the software, the PLC, all of the accountancy fees, not having to deal with post, not having to deal with, it's a very, and we're very transparent about the fact that this is what that 25% goes towards. I can't think there are any firms out there with insurance which costs them less than about 5% of revenue each year. It's really expensive, even if you have no claims. And so it's not like we're siphoning off 25%. It's like actually pretty
The
much,
costs are very significant.
most of that, or at least goes towards these costs, which you can see, the office, the people we employ. So it's and the conversations we have with people, there's no BS. That it's very clear what we can provide people, what would be attractive for them, what we would be getting out of it.
Definitely. I mean, I think that I appreciate you both fee earn, and often I say to both of you, it'd be great if you weren't perhaps doing as much fee earning, because we would get you in front of more people. Because I think the more people meet you, the more people will join you.
Yeah.
Because I said, you are true to your word. What you offer is what people receive when they join you. This is your opportunity, I guess, now to do a bit of a sell. What areas do you want to see grow within Merali Beedle?
So we get asked our growth plans quite often, and we always end up in the same place, which is we've never had a target. We have no urge to grow, but when we find great lawyers, we will then grow. So we are very real estate heavy, and it would be better from an insurance point of view to grow in non-real estate areas. But if we find fantastic real estate lawyers, which we keep doing, it makes no sense to turn away the best-in-class people. So the key thing that we look for is the caliber of the lawyer. And if we find great people, then we'll grow. If we don't find people who, and we were in a situation recently where we weren't entirely sure of someone we had met.
With a good following.
With a very good following. And we sat down and were like, normally when you know that someone's a brilliant lawyer. And in this case, we were just like, they probably will be fine. But the fact that we're questioning it and it's not an immediate yes, that probably indicates our answer to us. And there was nothing wrong with this person. It's just what we particularly are doing as a firm. We have this particular growth policy where our perception is the only way we will grow. And so this person, I'm sure, went to another absolutely fine firm, and I'm sure they'll do brilliantly. But from our point of view and how we are structuring and how we are presenting ourselves, we can only grow with people that we are very, very comfortable with. So there's no real area that we would love to grow in. We just want to find absolutely brilliant people and grow with them.
And are you finding law of attraction is certainly starting to be something that's coming to fruition for you?
I think that there's so much, and again, one of the reasons that we, as you know, and I know it's annoying for you and for anyone who's trying to get us in front of people, one of the reasons we think, do we really have to, in terms of marketing, is because there's so much content out there on LinkedIn and Google Ads and everything, and attracting people organically by meeting them or seeing them on the other side of deals, and the firm growing in a way where it's now been around long enough that people may have heard of it, and a bit at the same time it's not, I don't know, we're very aware that attraction really works, and I'm not convinced that promotion always does. And we had it with PR a few years ago, I think you remember, which is we got a great PR agency involved for 6 months, and they got us loads of press, and you were in Forbes twice, and
Yeah.
we'd been in the FT before, but then we're in the Times and a Telegraph, bunch of different places on the BBC, and we stopped the contract after 6 months, and they were great PR agents because we just thought, what is this actually getting us?
Did you get any lawyers joining off the back of that?
It's hard to say sometimes because you don't really know. Like, did someone read that article and then think, oh right, those are the guys, or had they heard of us in the industry and then read the article and then that inspired them to say hello? It's hard to quantify, but I think the difficulty is something just an ego exercise, or is something genuinely helping you as a business and helping how the public perceives buying services from you? And we concluded that working really hard and performing well was the best advertising that we could do, and that's where we've ended up. Now, it might in fact be the wrong decision, but I think we're both very comfortable with where we are today.
Yeah,
I'm in awe of people who really love doing networking events and going there and like pressing the flesh and kind of talking to loads of people and getting their name out there, and it works really well for some people. Both Adam and I really enjoy meeting people one-on-one or in small groups, and in the evenings I really like watching football with my cats. So, I'd prefer to be doing that than being at a networking event. And so that's...
I'm not even sure I can take that
It's
seriously. It's like a title of a really bad book.
Literally not joking.
No, exactly. I'll we can add some photos of Tiger and Mochi to the visuals for this podcast. But
you've just lost all the
dog
lovers.
I like dogs too. It's fine. We got loads of dog lovers in the firm. They're great. But it's that. But we work really hard during the day, and like we often have work breakfasts and things, and at the end of the day I don't always want to go and do stuff like that. And so, and I know you're similar, and we do make an effort, but the one-on-one recruitment or meeting clients and all of that has always worked better for me and you.
Yeah, I think at the beginning when we were trying to understand how to build a following, you try everything, right? The second anyone gives you an invitation to anything, you just go do it. But you slowly understand how the industry works, the best ways for you as an individual with your personality, what suits you to go and attract work. Now, some people are brilliant at going into a big room and then winning contracts from that style of marketing. And by trying different things, you learn what you're good at and what you enjoy doing. And then if you can just focus on what you enjoy, you naturally just are better at it because you genuinely want to be there. And Nico, as he mentioned, we're similar. We don't love that walk into a massive room and go and talk to everyone type of situation. So we've just focused on individuals and then really high performance.
Yeah.
So that's been very successful for us.
And in terms of our own practices, we've absolutely seen that in terms of attraction. Right, it's been word of mouth via agents in particular. I think we're lucky in terms of being transactional property lawyers and the firm growing the way it has done and our practice growing. We didn't choose to be that type of lawyer, but it's turned out to be very helpful, which is if agents know that you're really responsive and you get the deals done and you're available and you're reliable, you get lots of work. And so we've had to do very little promotion. It's much more about just people knowing you're there, and you get loads of repeat work, and your existing clients will keep on instructing you, and it's a snowball thing. We both pass a lot of work to other people within the firm. Not in any way guaranteed, and there's no obligation to do it. That's the other thing, which is so different from traditional firms, is if we're too busy to do something, it's like, does anyone fancy doing this? And if the answer is no, it's like, they're like, oh, I'm really sorry. It's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's your life.
Yeah.
There's no pressure and no guilt.
And what's the plan? I mean, where do you want to see Merali Beedle get to? We
were talking about this on the way here, which is we're both really happy doing it, and I don't have any. And we speak for Adam as well. God, we are like a married couple in some ways, sort of speaking for each other. But in that, I'm 40, and no, don't look it. And
just before you were about to say,
you can airbrush.
I was actually looking more at Adam's eyes when you mentioned the word
he's like,
married,
here we
married couple.
Here we go. What's going on here? But I don't have any desire to do anything else with my career and with my life. So in terms of what's the plan here, the plan here is absolutely not to burn out for 3 years, sell to private equity, and then spend the rest of my life in the sun. I'd go mad. I'm much happier when I'm occupied, and so the plan is just keep on doing it and see where we go.
Yeah, I think one of the brilliant thing is we love the routine of it. So you're in 4 days a week. I'm in every day, but we have lunch with colleagues in the office, like randomly, whoever's there. Sometimes we just grab them and all go for lunch together. Otherwise, Nico and I will go for lunch together, and the gym's around the corner. So it's just a really good environment for us to be part of. And sometimes when I'm on holiday, I'm anxious to get back. It's not just to work, it's to be in the environment that we've created, which we really enjoy. And evidently other people are enjoying being in this environment as well. But it's you tailor it to exactly how you want to live. So you perhaps go to the gym in the morning, do some work, have lunch with a colleague, do a bit more work, and then take off when you've finished all your work, or go home and do whatever else you need to do, and then maybe you'll check in later if needs be. So the lifestyle of it is brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
You've probably answered this question now, but probably my final question: would you do it again? Would you do it all again? And if so, what would you do differently, if at all?
I would do all of it again. I'm so grateful that we're doing what we're doing now. I didn't want to be a lawyer in particular. I didn't study law. I went into it because London's really expensive, and I wasn't making as much money in the band I was in that I thought I would do, and online poker wasn't going quite as well as I thought it would. But in terms of how it's all going now, and in terms of what our life looks like, it's amazing. And in terms of would I change any of it, it's like no, because I wouldn't. I've learned way more from my mistakes and my failures than I have from my successes.
Yeah, the mistakes hurt, and so you learn faster. I would like to think I would do it again. Well, it's
I was like, cheers, mate. I love it.
It's just the first 2 years were so hard.
Yeah.
And I got down to my last £5,000, and that was all the business that I had left in the business. So, even if you don't have any work, you're still every month paying for your legal resources, your software, your accountants. You're paying for your insurance. And it doesn't matter if you still don't do any work, there's nothing to insure, but you still have to pay the bills. So, and then your rent is there. So, perhaps I started it with not enough. Well, I did start it with not enough money, but that was just the situation at the time. But as the business grew, so after year 2, it became more and more enjoyable. Now it's brilliant. So I wouldn't have. I'm involved in a few other businesses as well, but the majority of my time is in the law firm. Like the vast majority, maybe 80 something % is still in the law firm, and I wouldn't want to change that. So yeah, as long as the first 2 years went by. Well, also now it's different, because if we had to start again tomorrow, we have established client bases.
Yeah.
So if you're starting a regulated business with not much money, no clients, and all the costs, it's mad.
That's the thing. When
it's
you
really
look
a bad
back,
idea.
It's that thing. There's real upside to inexperience.
Yeah.
In that you do stuff and you look back, and I think of it in terms of how long it took us to hire a practice manager and things like that. Where you're doing all the payments yourself and you're scanning all the posts yourself to the lawyers. But there's a real benefit to us having done all of it, because now the ops team who work for us, we've done everything.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of, these lawyer managers who are above this. It's like, no, we did everything when the firm started.
Except when you were on holiday for 6 weeks.
Then I did it. The tag team worked really well for him in that situation.
Sometimes you got to rest after a big deal.
Unless there's anything else you want to kind of get across to the listeners, I think we pretty much covered all bases of why any aspiring lawyer who's looking at dispersed law should join Merali Beedle.
I think just have a chat. That's the thing is I always think just don't rule anything out, and when people do make the decision as to whether or not to join us, we're very aware that it's a big decision. It's a very personal one. So if people want to have a chat to us about it, we're always delighted to do so. And again, unlike traditional law firms, we're not looking to recruit someone immediately or overnight. So we'll chat to people and then stay in touch.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Just have a conversation. We see where you're at. We'll help you develop your client base if you need that, and we're always here to bounce things off. We've done it ourselves, so we're good advisors to talk through things. So yes, hopefully we are speaking to several people, and hopefully that will continue.
Well, I wish you all the very best. I mean, I've seen you go from strength to strength. The firm is doing incredibly well. The lawyers I've placed with you love Merali Beedle, and I can see why. You guys are great fun. You're great lawyers. So thanks for chatting to me today, and let's do it again in probably another 3 years, and hopefully we've still got our hair, Nico.
Absolutely. Hopefully it won't be in a global pandemic again next time.
Mine's getting a bit further back, but it's still there just about.
Me too. Mine's thinning slightly as well.
There are package holidays to Turkey, by the way.
I've heard of that. I've heard about this.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, Luke. Thank you.